couple of hours and giving us a first-hand report. Let's get the latest now from you, Jim.
Jack, good morning, and good morning, New England. You can see the story here in Scituate. You can see the amazing breakers coming in here off of the Atlantic. And as we've been discussing, it's well over an hour until we hit high tide. I want to tell you about a new development here, something that we've noticed in the last little while. We know about these waves, and we know that they've been pounding these seaside homes. But what we're noticing here now, if we can look down in this direction, is that we see some flooding. We see some of the waves coming over this seawall, which was built in the 1930s, incidentally, and we're getting pools of ocean water now. And this is what they're concerned about here in Scituate, because we have the Atlantic Ocean, we have a narrow spit of land, and then we have some salt marsh on the other side of that spit of land. And the problems come when the ocean water migrates across the street here and floods and meets that marsh, and then we have streets cut off, and that's obviously a huge public safety concern. We should also remind everybody here in Scituate, certainly, that there's been a strong advisory for coastal residents here in this community to evacuate. It's not in order yet, at least as far as we can tell, but they are strongly advised to evacuate, and you can see the reason why. A lot of these homes, though, have stood for a long time, have stood for decades, and the people here obviously love the conditions during the month of June, July, and August, but this is the other side of the equation as these breakers come in and assault this coastline. So we're weathering the storm, and we're doing that so that you folks can stay at home and monitor developments, and we'll be here all day long. Live in Scituate, I'm Jim Smith, WBZ News. Jack and Kerry, back to you.
Jim, I have to ask you, we see some folks out there. Are they the homeowners up there, or are they just people checking out the scene?
Yeah, we see there are some people checking out the scene, and in some cases they're worried about their property. I'm going to walk down here a little way just to give you an idea of the depth of field, if you will. We can look down here and we can see some of the construction here along this coast, and they have good reason to be concerned, because a lot of these houses are basically on stilts or on concrete pilings, because why bother having a basement if you live in this neighborhood, because the Atlantic Ocean's going to come in every time we get a storm like this. But we have a combination, Kerry, of sightseers and concerned property owners, I guess. There's a natural fascination with the sea, certainly, and with the power and destructive force. But as you can see, it also has some power, and it needs to be respected. So it's a fine line, but you're always going to get some people coming out too close, I guess, including myself. So I'll try to stay a little bit closer to these structures here, which is probably a good idea. But yeah, we have a lot of spectators out. It's probably something that if conditions deteriorate, that will be discouraged by public safety officials. Back to you guys.
And we can see by the pictures, by the way, thank you, Jim, the intensity of the storm is increasing there, and those are some fascinating pictures. That's the situation along the Scituate area. If we go further along to the south coast, down toward Marion, they also have had some problems inside the harbor with some rough seas. Nothing like this, thank heavens, yet, but it's still pretty stormy there in that protective harbor. And Karen Anderson has been there and watching over the situation. Karen, bring us up to date. What's going on there in Marion?
Well, Jack, the rain has eased off. It hardly even feels like it's raining at all, just a little mist in the air. But the wind, well, you can see that the wind gusts have picked up here. We're at Tabor Academy in Marion, and you're looking right here. This is one of the dorms and the dining hall. This is going to be evacuated in about an hour or so. They're moving all of the students and doing a makeshift dining hall up on higher ground, because they're expecting that this area could flood, as it did a little bit during Irene, and as it did to about this high during Hurricane Bob. Now, earlier this morning, we drove through New Bedford as we were coming in here. Here's some video. You can see that my photographer, Matt Colson, got while we were coming through New Bedford. There was a boat that was hoping that we'll stay tied up there. The wind was whipping through there starting earlier this morning. We also spoke with one man here in Marion who came down with his kids to show them what it was like during high tide this morning.
I come down every year to check out when we have a decent storm. So.
Casey, and what are you teaching your kids about?
Well, I'm just showing them how dangerous the storm can be, you know, and to stay away from the water when it gets to be this high.
Now, around town, I'm told it's pretty quiet right now. A lot of people were doing their preparations yesterday. I am told as well, though, that people should be aware, like you've been saying over and over, that it really is later tonight that things are going to get worse. So law enforcement, police in this area asking people to stay inside if possible and wait out the storm. Jack?
All right, Karen Anderson there at Tabor Academy. Boy, they've seen action over the years, no doubt about it.
Yes, they have, as well as the folks in Chatham. These are live pictures from Chatham. We will be speaking to Bill Shields, who is down there checking out Hurricane Sandy for us. Stay with us. We are here for you. Kick back. Stay at home if you can. Enjoy a cup of coffee because we've got you covered. We'll be back.
Options are great, right? Because when you have good options, you get exactly what you need. That's why I switched to Amica for car insurance. They really listened when I called. And they explained all of these options that were perfect for me. Like they have a reward program for good driving, accident forgiveness. They even have identity fraud protection. So I got the right coverage. And I saved money, which is my favorite option.
You could save hundreds with Amica Auto Insurance. Call for a free quote now.
If you ask me to recommend a vacation, I'll send you to the beach. But my sister, the mountains. So we have our differences. But if you ask us about car insurance, we'd recommend the same thing. Call Amica.
Anytime you call Amica, it's a great experience. They explain all your options, and they make sure you have the coverage that you really need.
And Amica's claim service is absolutely amazing.
Like the mountains.
The beach.
You could save hundreds with Amica Auto Insurance. Call for a free quote now.
I'm attorney Jim Sokoloff, and I approve this message. You've heard a lot about mesothelioma and asbestos exposure in our Massachusetts Senate race. For over 30 years, I've taken on big corporations to get justice and compensation for working-class families exposed to asbestos. If you've been diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer, you may be entitled to compensation. Asbestos doesn't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican. Asbestos disease can kill anyone.
Call 1-800-324-6376.
Well, as we heard Barry Burbank a short time ago explaining just how huge and cataclysmic this storm is, especially to our south. You go down from New York on down through New Jersey and Delaware. They're bracing for what could be some extreme damage.
And we have been taking you live to different locations to give you an idea of what it looks like. Susan McGinnis has been live at Rehoboth Beach, Delaware for the past few days, seeing a significant change over the days. Susan, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Jack and Carrie. Yeah, through the weekend and through today, you could see the storm intensify as time goes by. At this hour, the rain seems to have taken a short break, but the wind is still intense, and the ocean, the waves are just huge here. So the surf keeps on intensifying. The water is getting closer. It's actually under the boardwalk, under the hotels here. So it is a good thing that many folks have heeded the warnings and headed inland.
Whoa!
Conditions along the coast have been steadily getting worse.
It is strengthening, 85 miles per hour, and more importantly, this pressure is continuing to fall. That is a very low pressure, 946 millibars, and so Sandy is going to probably strengthen even more as it approaches the coast.
Officials say time is running out to get to safety.
If you haven't gotten ready, your window's pretty much closing right along the coast. There's still time inland, but I think the biggest thing is once the storm starts impacting your area, stay off the road, stay somewhere safe.
As Hurricane Sandy moves in, most folks have heeded the mandatory evacuation orders and moved out. Still, many left here still wondering just how much damage this storm can do and if they're ready.
I don't think people are as prepared for the storm as I think they should be.
Mary Garvert lives near Rehoboth Beach, and her brother is a meteorologist.
He says don't underestimate the hype.
Further up the coast, officials predict a storm surge of 11 feet could hit New York City.
There's a mandatory evacuation for this zone.
As a result, 375,000 New Yorkers have been ordered to evacuate flood-prone Lower Manhattan.
We have 2 little kids, so we had to pack all of our stuff and leave, and we want to make sure that they are safe.
New York's subway and bus systems have been shut down. Airlines have canceled thousands of flights scheduled for today.
I'm trying to get to Greensboro, North Carolina.
President Obama toured FEMA headquarters and says the federal government is standing by to provide any assistance it can.
And the governor of Delaware has issued what's called level 2 driving restrictions, meaning only essential personnel are allowed on the road. Jack and Carrie, this means that anyone who is left here, officials want those people either in their homes or in shelters.
All right, Susan McGinnis reporting live from Delaware as they brace from the storm and comes ashore between 6 and 8 o'clock tonight. And I think one of the stories we're going to be covering over the next several days is going to be what happens with the airlines. They're not going to be able to just start tomorrow and say, okay, everybody get on board.
That's so true.
This could be up to 3-4 days before a lot of people can get there. And if you haven't booked already, it's going to be rough getting around, which has a huge impact on the most populous part of the country.
Yeah, and just waiting on hold to try to find out exactly what to do with your ticket, if you get a refund, whether you can take another flight, that's going to certainly take a while. We are going to bring you live now to Chatham, where Bill Shields has certainly been braving the elements for us. Bill, how you doing there now?
Oh, we're doing fine. We're getting a little wet, but that's all right. That happens when you have a hurricane, I assume. But in the last half hour, the wind has picked up pretty dramatically. Earlier this morning, it was just a good steady wind, but now we're getting some gusts, probably approaching 50 miles an hour, that are a little bit tough to deal with. But again, look at the inner harbor here. Seldom have I seen it like that, where you have actually 2- and 3-foot waves in the inner harbor busting up against the fish pier. And further out on North Beach, we can see huge waves crashing over the cottages out there. So you kind of have to worry about the fate of those cottages that have been out there for 50 or 60 years. But as we travel around Chatham this morning, and actually the Upper Cape, we talked with a lot of people who were well aware of what was going on, and they were trying to go about their normal routines, although preparing for this storm. We went into a diner this morning that's appropriately named Sandy's Diner. No relation to the storm, obviously, but appropriately named. And people inside the diner were just, they were confident that they had prepared, and that the law enforcement and emergency service personnel had warned them. So they were just going to kind of sit tight and wait this one out.
I think we're going to be fine. It's as long as everybody listens to the emergency people and stays off the roads, stays out of the way. Probably going to be power outages, but nothing to get too worried about. It's just the thing I worry about is the fishermen and their boats and flooding. You know, as long as their equipment's safe, that's a lot of money and a lot of investment to go under so much pressure. But we'll be fine.
The high tide is afternoon today down here, and a lot of people are concerned about that, especially here at the fish pier, because in 1991, the water came right through the fish house here and just gutted the fish house. So people are concerned about that. Even more so, the moon tide tonight after midnight. That will give this storm hours of pushing the ocean this direction. Then you got the high tide, you got the full moon. So people are really concerned about what's going to happen after midnight down here. But again, I think people are pretty well prepared, and they've been through a lot of these storms, so you know they're not too worried, but they are cautious. And again, a lot of people were here in 1991 for that was a storm that lasted 4 full days. That's when you had about 5 boats actually go down, 5 commercial boats go down in the harbor. And there's still a few out there. Most of them, though, have been put into safer inner harbors, like up here to the north of us at Ryder's Cove. But again, this is going to be a long afternoon and long evening for a lot of people. And personally, right now, I'm mentally just going to a happy place, and all the nice hours I've spent out on the ocean in the summer and in the fall. So this will, as my dearly departed mother used to say, this too shall pass. Reporting live from Chatham, I'm Bill Shields, WBZ News. Back to you guys.
You're a hardy New Englander, Bill. We know that.
All right, let's bring in another hardy New Englander, Barry Burbank, who's been covering storms for us since 1978. Interesting, right now this storm continues to intensify. Isn't that a little strange under these colder waters?
Well, yeah. Well, you know what, Jack? What's going on here is it's going to start to lose its tropical characteristics, and it's getting a shot of cold air coming in from the west. And what's happening here, it's going to intensify under this process, because we've got this energetic jet stream moving in here with a lot of energy. So even though it's passing over colder water, in the process of it transforming into what we call an extratropical system, basically trying to stay away from too much science here, but basically it is still intensifying even though it is going over the colder water. So it's going into that extratropical phase as it gets this extra shot of energy from the atmosphere coming in from the west. That's this trough is driving down here like this. It's actually pulling the storm back towards the New Jersey coast. But we have this great big block up here in Canada. Most unusual to see something like this. This is quite extraordinary, to say the least. But it's going this way, and it's going to turn more toward the west. It's going to plow all of its wind and rain and storm surge onto New Jersey and New York City. They're in bad shape down here for a big storm surge. So it's going that way instead of coming straight north to give us the worst storm surge. However, we've got this core of strong winds, which is pinwheeling out from the center, so we will see stronger winds this afternoon as this comes up here, but not as strong as the wind that's going to go into New Jersey and toward New York City. So we can be thankful for that. But as this comes up, we get the stronger wind. And eventually, you can see some of these spiral bands of showers out in here. There they are. They're going to start pinwheeling and rotating northwestward. And so we'll see some of those coming in from the southeast, and we'll get heavier rain this afternoon. Nevertheless, it's not going to be anywhere near as impressive as the rain which comes in on the left front quadrant of the storm down here in the mid-Atlantic, where they're going to get about 6 to maybe as much as 9 or 10 inches of rain there. We only get an inch or so close to Boston down toward the Cape, and perhaps 2 or 3 inches to the north and west, where we get some lifting of that moist air coming in and going up over some of the higher terrain, bringing out a bit more in the way of rainfall there. So it is up to 90 miles per hour now, moving north-northwest at 18 miles per hour with that pressure down and continues to lower, perhaps one of the lowest air pressures ever down in here as this moves that way. It's moving toward New Jersey and the same old track. Of course, as it moves onshore, it's going to start to weaken quite quickly, and will be down to 40 miles per hour by Wednesday morning up in here. But it's going to do a lot of damage down here and some damage in New England with these winds, which will be 60 to maybe as high as 70 or 80 and a few gusts on the New England south coast, and then 30 to 60 here in most of Massachusetts. But at times you're going to look out, especially if you're in valley areas and shelter locations, and say, what are they talking about? I can hardly see the trees blowing at all. And that's a good thing. We want it that way. We don't want the strong damaging winds, but at times there'll be gusts that are going to cause some of these branches and limbs to come down. And there'll only be scattered outages up north, which is typical of a rather general nor'easter, a stronger northeaster that we get. Down here in Massachusetts, the outage is a little bit more widespread. Into extreme southern New England, there's going to be widespread outages down here, obviously, where the wind is stronger for a longer period of time down in southeastern Massachusetts, and that coastal flooding is, we're going to be watching that as well. We've had a few gusts to 50 in Boston, and inland locations have been 20 to 40 miles per hour, except in some of those valley spots. We still have wind potential here of about, again, close to 60 or so miles per hour in gusts only, not sustained, so there's a very big difference, only in gusts. And even tomorrow, we have winds of 20 to 40 miles per hour through tomorrow as the wind comes up from the southeast. So it's primarily between about 3 p.m. and 9 p.m., I think, that when we have the risk of getting the strongest winds today, and then tomorrow it's a little different. Again, here come the showers that I just told you about. They're going to be pinwheeling in from the southeast, moving northwestward across the area and dumping some spells of heavy rain, squally showers, and within some of those heavier belts of rain is when some of those stronger winds will be brought down. There's the heaviest rain down here. We've got a lot of rain off to the north and west, but only about maybe 2 to 3 or 4 inches in some of the higher hilly areas around closer to Boston. Not as much, even though at times it'll be pouring this afternoon in some of these squally showers that'll be passing by. So this is an extraordinary storm to see it moving on a westerly track, to see it move way out over the ocean and then take a sharp left hook to the left. So hats off to the computer models, because, you know, many, many days ago they were projecting this. It's truly amazing to see something like this materializing that we saw many days ago that would happen.
Especially since it hasn't happened before.
Exactly.
So many different, a variety of events here, Bear. And one of the things a lot of folks are saying, well, schools have been closed. A lot of folks have the day off. Stock market closed. But here in our area, although it seems so quiet, the reality of it is when you're driving home from work, if you had work, if the kids were headed home on the bus, that was the biggest concern. That's what I was saying to a lot of the CBS radio stations that I've been on all morning long. They say, well, you know, the kids have got a day off from school, got an extra long weekend here. Some people didn't have to go to work.
Truth of the matter is, if you're right on the coastline in exposed coastal locations, the wind is really much more powerful than it is inland. And again, with the wind picking up this afternoon, it will be dangerous perhaps for tree branches and limbs coming down.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more of our live coverage tracking Sandy. Stay tuned.
WBZ's AccuWeather Eye on the Storm coverage is brought to you by Safety Insurance.
I like the way you move. I like the way you give me so much fun. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's all about love. It's all about love.
Drenching rains, damaging winds. As Sandy heads north, the WBZ AccuWeather team is tracking the storm. Where will it make landfall? Are we ready for the worst? As coverage continues, follow the story with Todd Gutner and WBZ News.
There are a number of new reasons to look at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Massachusetts for your Medicare options. We have a variety of new plans at new low prices to fit your needs and budget, starting as low as $28 a month. These plans include everything from routine annual physicals to hearing and vision exams, and prescription drugs. And we have an affordable individual dental plan, too. Call us for information and to request our free guide to Medicare. And of course, these plans all come with the peace of mind of Blue Cross. So call 1-888-800-8445 for your free copy of your guide to Medicare with no obligation. You've got a number of reasons to go with Blue Cross Blue Shield.
We continue to monitor Sandy, which is still building out there in the Atlantic, and will be turning more to an east, but we're going to be affected here in New England. This is the inner harbor in Chatham, and you can see that the water is lapping up over the area, that dock area near the fisherman's shack there. And Bill Shields was telling us as he looks out on the North Beach that huge waves are now going over that beach area, and more than likely affecting those cabins which are out there. This is a serious storm, but very serious down New York south, where it could be really terrible.
Thanks for sticking with us, everybody. I'm Carrie Connolly along with Jack Williams. Yeah, we are talking in our area, the strongest winds being pretty much between 3 and 9 p.m. So hang in there. If you're saying it doesn't look rough yet, it will be. And a quick reminder for those of you who love The Price is Right, you can watch it right now on My TV 38. So tune on over there.
All right, let's bring in. Who are we going to right now?
We've got Todd Gutner.
Todd Gutner is suddenly here. He's been doing a great job. You know, it's been very interesting, Todd, about how this storm was forecast correctly and from several days away.
Well, Jack and Carrie, we've been talking about this storm for over a week now, and it's finally here in the Northeast. And it still looks like, and it will happen, that the core of the storm will travel well to our south into southern parts of New Jersey. So that's a very, very promising sign for us. We're going to avoid the worst of this storm. Needless to say, this storm, Sandy, continues to strengthen. The core, which is very small, it's this ball of clouds and intensity down off the coastline of New Jersey right now, has strengthened up to 90-mile-per-hour winds in a strong Category 1 hurricane, but it has started to make that northwest turn, which is so very unusual to see from a tropical system coming up here into our northern waters off the New England coastline and mid-Atlantic coastline. But this northwest turn is important because that means it's not coming north into us, it's going northwest into the mid-Atlantic. And places down there near Atlantic City are going to be absolutely devastated with historical storm surge and these wind gusts that will top out over 90 miles per hour. So it looks like the landfall will be down along Atlantic City. Now, the thing that's important here, that even though this is a hurricane here, it's still a very powerful nor'easter for us. And hundreds of miles away here in southern New England, the winds are just starting to ramp up. Our coastline by far will take the worst hit from this storm. Inland areas, it'll be a nasty nor'easter with some power outages and tree branches down and a lot of rain as well. But the coastline will get battered. Now, the good news is the storm, while it will be in the northeast for the next couple of days, it'll be weakening as well. We'll have showery type rains and some breezes off and on through the next couple of days. Speaking of breezes, the winds are starting to pick up, namely along the coastline. Boston just had a gust of 46, and we've actually topped out closer to 50 about an hour ago, and we're seeing the winds really ramp up down here on the south coast. Falmouth and now Chatham just had a gust just shy of 50 miles per hour. Most inland areas are gusting between 25 and 35 miles per hour right now. There's Worcester. Keep in mind, Worcester's an elevated area. As we go through the course of this afternoon, between about 3 and 7 o'clock this evening, that's when we'll see the peak wind gusts. And we'll top out around 60 miles per hour for the majority of the Commonwealth. Down along the south coast, Cape Cod and the Islands, Buzzards Bay, and down through the rest of southern New England's coastal waters, there will be some hurricane-force wind gusts. And then north of the Massachusetts border up into northern New England, winds may top out at about 50 miles per hour. This is where you're going to see typical nor'easter conditions this afternoon through this evening. We'll see isolated to scattered power outages. In Massachusetts, the power outages will be more widespread. As I was coming into work a couple of minutes ago, there are a lot of small branches down at this point. I expect those branches to get larger and larger, and we may actually topple some trees too before this storm is over. That's going to lead to numerous power outages, and hopefully they'll get restored pretty quickly, but they may last for days, as we've seen with past storms over the last couple of years. Major outages expected in southeastern Mass, and there may actually be some structural damage as well. Shingles ripped off roofs, gutters, and even some vinyl siding is possible, and especially in some of those exposed areas on the south-facing beaches there, southeast-facing areas too, with that wind coming howling in. Now, this is interesting. These are buoys that we plot in our coastal waters all around New England's coast and down off the mid-Atlantic. These are wind gusts that these buoys are picking up. You can see off of the mid-Atlantic coast, we're getting a 56 mile per hour wind gust, nearly a 60 mile per hour wind gust close to New York Harbor, and just south of Block Island here, a 51 mile per hour wind gust. As the storm continues to work northward, these winds will transfer into New England. So we are still waiting and awaiting the strongest part of the winds. You can see even up through coastal Maine, there's some strong winds off of here, mostly gusts around 40 miles per hour. So folks in northern New England, especially along the coast there in Maine and seacoast New Hampshire, certainly not out of the woods. And then finally, the wave heights. Our coastline is going to get battered. We're coming up on a high tide right now, and you've seen pictures out of Scituate. Those waves are huge, and already we're seeing some of these waves 23 feet, 18 feet right there just south of our coastal waters, and we'll see these waves kind of work in and batter our beaches. Major coastal flooding on the south coast and major beach erosion. Some beaches actually may be reconfigured by the time the storm finally winds down. Jack and Carrie, we'll see you again in a little bit.
All right, Todd, thank you very much, and look forward to hearing more from Todd as he watches huge storm. Again, it's not expected to actually come into landfall until 6 to 8 o'clock tonight.
And one of the things I was telling Jack earlier, he was looking at me like I was crazy, but think about your pets during this weather, because I have a dog who literally has to be on a tranquilizer. He's so petrified of the wind. So bring your pets inside. If they can go to a shelter like in Scituate, you are allowed to go to Scituate High School there, where they are recommending evacuations. And that's where we have Jim Smith live, who has been braving the elements. Jim, we are checking in on you again. What's it like now?
Well, it's just getting wilder by the minute, Carrie, as you can imagine, as we approach high tide. I wanted to show you something a little different this time around. Certainly, we know that the ocean has been boiling and it's been surging just all morning long. We got these breakers coming in and pounding the seawall. But look down there. Look at the water coming in, breaching the seawall, coming up through the nooks and crannies. And what they're concerned about is that the seawater will migrate. It already is migrating a little bit, perhaps across the street, and maybe cut off some of the streets, if not here, a little bit further down toward Egypt Beach, because as you can see, this is really a narrow spit of land here separated by the ocean and a salt marsh right down here. Even though we're not on the beach, we might as well be on the beach because we have some seaweed already. So that's the situation. But earlier this morning, we did get a chance to take a little tour around Scituate to look at some of the chronic trouble spots, if we will, some of the historically battered sections. Now let's take a look at places like Peggotty Beach, places like Minot Beach. These are places where storms have hit very hard in the past and in some cases actually claimed homes. So that obviously is a concern for public safety officials who are now advising coastal residents down here to evacuate. A lot of sightseers out here as well, including a woman from the Netherlands who tells us that this storm is big news in Europe.
I think it's scary. I'm from the Netherlands and I get notes from Europe saying that they're really worried because they hear about a huge storm.
So this storm is making news in Europe? People are keeping track?
Sure, I get notes by email from my colleagues and my relatives in the Netherlands. Yeah, so it's a little scary, but it's also kind of exciting.
It is a little bit scary, especially when this seawater comes just pounding over the seawall. As we could see there, I just wanted to let everybody know there's no lifeguard on duty today. There's no swimming. I just want to point that out. Back to you guys.
You know, Jim, you're there for us. Thank you.
Well, I also noticed that I don't see as many people hanging around you there, so maybe people have decided to go into the shelters at the high school in Scituate. They asked for voluntary evacuation of the area. Again, high tide isn't for another hour there, and the conditions now are not exactly great.
No, as well as in Marion. We go a little further south now. We go live to Karen Anderson, who is on the campus of Tabor Academy, the very beautiful campus of Tabor Academy. But many students who were out there this morning were advised to leave because they are right there on the water. Karen, good morning.
Well, good morning, Carrie. Yes, they are evacuating this dorm right here on the building, moving students to higher ground. And we're joined here by one of the students, Kendallin. Kendallin's a junior, and you're a proctoring with a dorm. So you're bringing some of the students from here up to your dorm?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to have other students in our dorm, but it's kind of fun too because I'm with them.
And what are you guys doing now through this storm?
We're pretty much sitting around watching movies and talking, stuff like that.
And now you have family in New Jersey. Have you talked to them? Are you watching what's going on?
Yeah, I'm watching, and I talked to them last night, and they seem fine, so hoping for the best.
That's good. Now we're also joined by the head of school here at Tabor Academy, and this is John Quirk. The good news is I'm hearing from people is that there was a lot of time to prepare. What did you do to prepare?
We did have a lot of time to prepare, and I'm new here on campus, but we have a good team and a good plan, and we were pretty much ready to go yesterday, I thought, and really just kind of ready to ride out the storm today. We're going to vacate this side of campus over to the other side, and we'll be in good shape overnight.
That's great. You can tell that, you know, everything's cleared out. Most of the boats in this harbor have been cleared out. John, you said you're new to campus. We're also joined by Rob Hurd. He's been here for 26 years. You remember what it was like during Hurricane Bob 21 years ago.
Yeah, it was a little bit chaotic. There was a lot of boats, a lot of waves, a lot more wind, and surf and stuff like that. And I'm assuming we'll get some of that tonight, but hopefully we won't get as much as we had during Hurricane Bob.
Now show us, how high was the water during Hurricane Bob?
It was roughly about this, this high up, and it was all the way across to Front Street, which is the next road, the road sort of up. Tonight, hopefully it's maybe ankle deep and it's not far enough, but we'll have to see. It's just sort of wait and see, and we're ready for whatever we get.
And normally there's about 1,000 boats behind us in the water?
Yeah, normally, and you know, end of the season type of thing, a lot of boats are going out, but even last couple of days, you could see the harbor, which had about maybe 150, 200 boats in it on Friday, a lot of them got out, and the ones that are left just ran out of time. So hopefully it'll be good for them, and they'll stay where they are.
Now, just last year during Hurricane Irene, 4 boats came on shore from here, and I'll let you take a look behind. Here are some of the boats that are here now, hoping it won't be the case this time around. I did just speak with the harbor master. He said there's about 70 boats here right now. He feels pretty good about the situation and is now waiting, knowing that the worst is yet to come. Jack and Carrie?
Okay, Karen Anderson, thank you very much as we continue to monitor the situation there. And let me clarify one thing. I want to let you know that I think it's smart that pet owners take care of their pets. I wouldn't want people to think I don't love all pets like I love all people.
You're an animal lover.
I wouldn't go that far, but I'm not an animal hater.
All right. Fair enough. I'm glad you clarified. And a quick reminder, another thing we do want to clarify is if you're taking the T, the MBTA has suspended service as of 2 o'clock today.
Speaking just a short time ago, Transportation Secretary Rich Davey says the T actually chose that 2 p.m. time to give people in the city enough time to get home without putting their safety at risk.
The sustained winds we're expecting will impact service and likely require us to shut down service. So to give folks time in Boston to get out of the city, if they took the T in, we'll be shutting down at 2 o'clock today. So we encourage customers who took the T in this morning, if they can leave work in the next 4 hours, to please do so.
We're very happy to tell you that traffic has been very light today. School is out. Most people are simply staying home and watching the situation as the storm continues to grow. Again, coming on shore about 6 to 8 o'clock tonight, with high winds expected this afternoon, affecting much of the Massachusetts shoreline.
A lot of folks did stay home today, which is a good idea. Stay home, relax, and we have got you covered. Bill Shields certainly has us covered. He has been live in Chatham all morning long, bringing us the very latest there. Bill.
You're looking now at the fish pier. The water is starting to go up onto the parking lot of the fish pier here in Chatham as the wind continues to pick up. I guess we have sustained winds probably around, heck with this, around 30 miles an hour now. Some gusts probably to 45 or 50. And again, in 1991, this parking lot was completely inundated with water. In fact, it came actually through the fish house. Today, right as you can see, it's probably just coming up a few yards into the parking lot. But again, we have a high tide after 12 o'clock, so that's what people are concerned about. In fact, even more so, they're concerned about the lunar tide after midnight tonight, because that will have, the effect of 10 hours of wind pushing the water eastward onshore here to Cape. So that's what people are concerned about. And earlier today, Congressman Bill Keating actually came here to the fish pier. He had a meeting set up with a lot of the Cape Cod fishermen, the longliners, draggers, even some of the sport fishermen, concerning their fate. And as we all know, there's a lot of regulations, federal and state regulations, about the fishermen and what they can catch and when they can catch it. And specifically, they were talking today about some of these smaller boats that go after the scallops, because they can't get offshore where the big draggers can. So a lot of the concern that the congressman was talking with the fishermen about was about the scallop industry.
FEMA did approve the governor's emergency declaration. Of course, we don't know what the money will be, but that's a green light to go forward. And we're waiting for that and working for that to make sure those funds will be here for Massachusetts. And in my district, we're getting hit two ways. In the East Coast, winds will be a real factor. Power lines, we're concerned about power outages. And on the South Coast area, we're worried about the surge.
And around town, I think people are also very concerned about what is going to happen this afternoon and tonight. But people are prepared here in Chatham. They've been through a lot of storms. In my experiences here in 1987, 1991 were a couple of the big ones, along with some of the hurricanes. But people are, well prepared, I think. We saw a lot of the storefronts on Main Street in Chatham this morning were all boarded up. We saw a lot of private homes that were boarded up, and people are going about their business, securing their homes and making sure that everything was okay. I think they were prepared to ride this one out. And I also think, from talking with people in some diners and on the streets, that they were well prepared to be without power for 2, 3, maybe 4 days. Of course, back in 1991, this area was without power for 8, 9 days. But I don't think that is going to happen. I don't think anyone in our offices thinks that's going to happen. This one maybe a couple of days. And if we're lucky, and if the storm goes into New Jersey a little further south, like Todd and Barry have been talking about, well, then we might escape some of the real devastation that a lot of people honestly are thinking, may happen. But again, they're prepared for the worst and just hoping for the best. Reporting live from Chatham, I'm Bill Shields, WBZ News. Back to you guys.
And Bill, Chatham is a lot more vulnerable today than it was several years ago because of the breach of the bar there. I know that was several storms ago. Are you seeing a lot more effect because of the breach of the bar, and that the ocean now has more of a direct route in?
Oh, much so, Jack. That first breach in 1987 was small, and it expanded over the years. And then the no-name of the perfect storm in 91 completely destroyed part of what was then South Beach. Now you have North Beach, and South Beach has actually kind of almost moved inland. So now you have a lot of wave action in here in the harbor that you never used to have, or you didn't have in the last century. So, a lot of people are concerned. In fact, it's seldom that you see the harbor, this inner harbor, void of any boats. All the commercial guys have moved their boats
15 miles per hour. The kids had it written on their diapers. That's just one of them. metabolically active, as well as to have low-calorie, healthy foods selections, and even maybe provide individual counseling.
Why aren't schools doing this?
Yeah.
4 miles per hour, Blue Hill, 52, Nantucket, close to 50. These are all tropical storm force winds, even at Logan Airport, 45 in Hyannis at 45. At the Clay Observatory in Brookline, they had a 47-mile-per-hour gust. Inland, Rentham, one of the few spots reporting in a very strong wind gust there. Most of the areas have been coastal locations, but you can see with elevation in the interior, we have 35-plus mile-per-hour winds up to Lawrence. Now Portsmouth getting stronger winds as well, and strong winds all down along the south coast. If you look at the projection, this could get up to hurricane force strength wind gusts on the outer Cape, especially by the time we get to early afternoon. So we're looking at roughly noon to approximately midnight or so for damaging winds coming in with prolonged sustained winds and higher gusts that could be 60 miles per hour or so. As we go toward midnight, we will have reached our peak on the wind gusts. They'll still be very strong, but they will get lighter in the early morning hours. We'll still have a windy day tomorrow, but not the damaging winds, which is why the high wind warning is posted. And I expect as these winds continue to increase into the afternoon, we'll be hearing about more power outages. Don't forget, if you do lose power, now would be a time you can download the WCVB app for your mobile device, and that just allows you then, you can monitor all of our updates if you lose power. And those of you along the coast, we have a coastal flood warning up. Again, at noon high tide, we are watching for a 2 to 4 foot storm surge. Down along the south coast, it's the evening, 8 o'clock high tide that could have a 3 to 6 foot storm surge. Those of you away from the coast, we've been talking about this. Yes, you're getting strong winds. You could have scattered power outages because this is such a prolonged period of strong winds. But this is also a concern for some rain. I think we'll stay away from these isolated 5-inch amounts. It's not out of the question. Probably more likely 1-2-inch amounts of rainfall. The higher terrain, you could get a little bit of enhancement. Right now, we don't have the rain here. The rain is down to the south. It's filling in down along Long Island. The pounding rain, the more than 6 inches in some areas, close to 9 inches of rainfall, has been down across the mid-Atlantic, closer to the center of the storm. The projection is for about 2.5 inches away from the coast, close to 2 inches at the coast. Notice this is not a big rainmaker for the coastal areas. Inland, more of a rainmaker, combined with strong winds. As we've been talking about, temperatures are pretty mild, 50s to low 60s, and if it is safe and you can do so, we've also been asking, tweet us your photos. You can do it to @WCVB or personally to Harvey, to me, to David, or to Mike, Mike WCVB. We'd love to see your photos only if it's safe to do so. Bianca, Randy?
All right. We're hoping that Susan Warnick is going to be safe because she's at Shore Beach.
Yes, we're getting our first live report from Susan this morning. 11:20, Susan, and boy, it looks tough out there.
Oh, Bianca and Randy, it is windy. It is blowing the ocean. Take a look at the fierceness coming over that wall. It started just about an hour ago, the ocean building all morning, and now slamming against the seawall. They've had to close Revere Street down here by Short Beach. We're right on the line between Revere and Winthrop. There's already at least a foot of water right there. I've talked to some of the residents who say, yes, we've seen this all before, but this seems to be unusual in that there is so much wind. Not a lot of rain out here, but an awful lot of wind. One man who's lived here for more than 20 years said for the first time he is evacuating. He's going to stay with a friend in Franklin because he said he's had it. He doesn't have any water in his house right now, but he's afraid he might later, and he doesn't want to be here to see it. But as you can probably tell, there are some other people out here who want to see it. They want to see what's going on. They just can't imagine that this is happening here on, here's just an October morning, a Monday morning, and it is just fierce. There are state troopers here. They tell me that there have not been any serious incidents reported, but they are here, of course, just in case, and to make sure that nobody gets too close to the ocean. And if you think it's windy, I just want to show you something. I'm going to lean into the wind at one of the gusts. That wind is holding me up. I mean, it's really unbelievable. I hope you get the sense of it. And yet, it's not all that cold. We have people walking around in shorts. And as I mentioned before, people who are standing here who just want to see what's going on. You folks, you've lived here for a long time. I mean, this is not that unusual for you.
No, it's a lot like back in 1991, though, when we had the perfect storm or the no-name storm that they had. Pretty much the same.
And the kids got a day off from school, is that it? Were you supposed to be in school today?
Yes.
Yeah, but you like this better? And how about you? This is sort of exciting for the neighbors.
Yeah, it's typical though during the storms. We all come down here and watch it, so.
Well, go home and watch TV. You'd be much safer. Anyway, so we're going to keep watching this for you. Take a look. Take a look now. I think probably more than a foot of water here on Short Beach. We'll be back to you in a little while with an update. Randy, Bianca.
All right, now can you go visit Susan? You can ask her any questions you have with your consumer issues, too. We've seen some damage reports already coming in there.
Well, the state police are getting out of their car now to give her a wind sobriety test. So we don't know what's going to happen to Susan. All right.
She'll pass with flying colors, we know that.
We're going to take a break, and we'll continue our coverage. We're tracking Sandy today. We're looking live here at Plum Island on the North Shore.
Shoplifting is a Class A misdemeanor. I'm sure by now you've seen the video.
Nashville is Wednesday's #1 new drama.
As quickly as you came up in this business, that's how fast you can disappear.
Fame. Everybody wants it.
I'm new here.
I know. I heard your demo.
But how much are they willing to pay?
I'm not going to kiss your...
Shut up, please.
You've got one shot to set the record straight.
This interview's over.
Nashville. All new Wednesday at 10/9 Central on ABC.
It's the Bernie and Phil's free box spring event for a limited time only. Buy any American-made Sealy Posturepedic Gel Series mattress set.
And we'll give you the matching box spring absolutely free. These mattresses have everything.
Individually wrapped titanium steel springs and comfortable cool gel memory foam.
And with the free box spring, prices start at only $714 for the queen set.
All this week at Bernie and Phil's.
That's nice. Just one vote, just one senator could put Republicans in control of the United States Senate. Scott Brown could be that senator. What would Republican control mean? Deep cuts in education, Medicare, new tax breaks for millionaires. The next Supreme Court justice could overturn Roe v. Wade. One vote could make the difference. Your vote against a Republican Senate. Your vote for Elizabeth Warren.
I'm Elizabeth Warren, and I approve this message.
The choice, Scott Brown, rated one of the most bipartisan senators.
Elizabeth Warren, fiercely partisan.
Scott Brown, low taxes for everyone.
Warren supports higher payroll taxes and higher small business taxes.
Scott Brown supports a balanced budget amendment.
Warren opposes it.
Scott Brown is against taxpayer-funded college tuition for illegal immigrants.
Warren supports giving your tax dollars to illegals. The only choice for taxpayers, Scott Brown.
I'm Scott Brown, and I approve this message.
Taking you now to New York. Take a look at this. Boy, it looks like a ghost town in the city that never sleeps. A deserted Grand Central Station today. New York City's public transportation system has also been shut down as the city is dealing with the effects of Sandy, the Category 1 storm churning off the East Coast, packing 90-mile-per-hour winds, maximum sustained winds. And the mayor in New York, Michael Bloomberg, says the storm could lead to possible flooding in low-lying areas such as Lower Manhattan.
You're looking at Battery Park. The video just into us here at News Center 5. The worst fears are being realized. The river there is rising and already causing flooding here. Storm surge estimated Battery Park flooding could rise 6 to 11 feet. Swamping parts of Lower Manhattan. Tourists, of course, are familiar with this. This is where they go to pick up the ferry for Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island. Today is not a day for sightseeing at all. And they've closed a couple of the tunnels there to deal with the flooding there. And of course, as we reported earlier, the stock exchange is closed. It's the first time that's happened since 9/11. So, President expected to address the nation at 12:45. Of course, we'll bring that to you live as we continue our live team coverage for you on Sandy. And we want to get over to David Brown now with the latest information on the track of the storm. David.
All right, yeah, just checking out what's happening in and around the Mid-Atlantic states. New York City, they're getting the wave action. They're getting an impressive storm surge. It's just off to the south. Check out the bullseye. This is rainfall estimates over the last couple of hours. Many locations in through the Delmarva Peninsula, 6, 7, 8 inches of rain with waves of moisture moving offshore. That's going to be the trend at least throughout the afternoon. And of course, we are waiting the arrival of our precipitation. If JC or Harvey, if you could advance on the space bar, the actual weather map to show you the next weather map. There we go. You can see that we've received quite a few photos in and around our region, and that's going to be the trend. If you can hit the space bar one more time, here we go. You can see some flooding in and around the Oaks Bluff area of the Vineyard. Space bar again shows you what's happening also in and around our region. More flooding is a situation not only for the vineyard, but also up and over. You can see some of the waves crashing over the vineyard. And one more space bar will actually show you what's happening in Scituate. As always, if safe to do so, you can upload your photo, WCVB.com, or you can also tweet us or update on our Facebook fan page as that storm continues to not only give us the very strong winds, but the threat of coastal flooding right now. That's going to be the case throughout the afternoon. Randy, Bianca, to you.
All right, David, thank you.
All right, we're going to hit the break showing you live pictures right now, Plum Island. 30 minutes until high tide, but already definitely the seas are churning there. More coverage straight ahead for you as Sandy moves in.
Storm Team 5 tracking Sandy. I've been tracking Sandy from the very beginning. We're working around the clock to prepare you for whatever the storm brings. When computer models had Sandy going out to sea, Harvey Leonard called the shot, seemingly taking something of a right turn. But to me, the disturbance in the jet stream cuts from the middle of the country down to the east coast, starts to guide it up toward our area. For the latest on Sandy, stay informed with New England's most experienced team of meteorologists. Trust Storm Team 5.
We have to work on a collaborative basis. Look, the reason I'm in this race is there are people that are really hurting today in this country. And we face this deficit could crush the future generations. And Republicans and Democrats both love America, but we need to have leadership in Washington that will actually bring people together and get the job done, and could not care less if it's a Republican or a Democrat. I've done it before. I'll do it again.
I'm Mitt Romney, and I approve this message.
It starts with a handshake and a look in the eye that tells you, we may have been knocked down, but we're not out. And we've got a message for Washington. Everyone deserves a fair shot. Focus on job creation. Invest in infrastructure and community colleges. Give small business access to the capital and tools they need to grow. Protect Social Security and Medicare. Don't gut them. Right about now, you may be asking yourself, how are we going to pay for this? Pass the Buffett rule so that billionaires pay at least the same rate as most middle-class families. Tackle our debt and deficit with a balanced approach. That means spending cuts and closing corporate tax loopholes. I believe in public service. That's why I joined the Peace Corps after college and became a prosecutor after law school. We've been through an economic disaster. The question is, now what? Rebuild our middle class. Because when we do that, there's no stopping us. I'm Joe Kennedy, and I approve this message.
With Cascade Complete Pack.
Live coverage of Sandy now. We're live on Revere Beach here. The water washing over the road, going over the seawall here.
Getting a soaking there if you're anywhere in that area. And also Plum Island, they have been evacuating voluntarily. Some people deciding it's not worth it to try and ride out the high tide, which is now imminent, just 30 minutes away. We appreciate all the pictures you've been sending us here in the ULocal section of our website also.
All right, this is Lynn. The waves are coming up onto Lynn Shore Drive, not far from Nahat. And, of course, this is pretty much the scene all along the North Shore.
This is the South Shore here, Scituate. We've been watching the evacuations, actually. Police have been going to Rebecca Road. It is closed down at this hour, and they were evacuating people. You can see why. Liam Martin actually there sending us this photo, the house surrounded by water. And again, it is just 30 minutes until we see high tide officially.
All right, JC's here with the very latest on the storm moving in.
If this is it. This is, you know, one of the peaks that we're watching is the noon high tide from the center of the storm. Again, talking about Sandy, you can almost see how the center of the storm has really concentrated with a 943 millibar central pressure. This is an incredibly intense storm, but also a very broad storm with tropical storm force winds that extend 485 miles out from the center of the storm, which is about 200 miles southeast of Atlantic City, New Jersey. It looks like it will make landfall tonight along the south coast of New Jersey or possibly slightly farther to the south. Right now, it's packing 90-mile-per-hour sustained winds moving to the north-northwest at 18. Yes, that track, again, still takes it onshore, possibly strengthening even as it transitions from a tropical storm to more of a winter storm characteristics. It probably or could be a hybrid as it makes landfall. That will be one thing we're watching. Again, that's not anticipated to weaken the storm in any way, which is already providing tropical storm force winds all up and down down the East Coast. These are gusts, and we have strong gusts in the South Coast, even in the interior, 25 to 35-mile-per-hour winds. These are the sustained winds, which are now increasing. 25 to 35-mile-per-hour sustained winds are what we're seeing now. The farther north and west you are, the winds are breezy. It's not as strong for you. You're farther from the center of the storm. Projected by this afternoon, anywhere 1, 2, 3 o'clock, hurricane-force gusts are possible in places like Chatham, and very strong wind gusts that go up from the Maine coastline all the way down past Long Island into New Jersey. We're looking at a prolonged period as we reach the peak of the storm, which is just approaching. We will get into very strong winds for a very long period of time. Wind gusts that we have not registered yet, up to 60+ miles per hour, that extend toward midnight tonight. By the time we're getting to 11 or 12 o'clock, the worst of the damaging winds will be over, and we'll start to see still strong winds, but subsiding winds as we go through the overnight. So the high wind warning is up, and yes, widespread power outages are possible. We've been talking about the tides at the coast, not just the noon tide, but the midnight for the North Shore as well, although it's not expected to be as severe. Same for the Revere area. Boston could see much more flooding at noon than it is at midnight. That goes for the South Shore. Possible pockets of major flooding at noon, moderate at midnight, and down along Cape Cod, we're looking at storm surges that could be up to 4 feet coming in right now. Storm surge closer to 2, 3 feet by the time we get to midnight. The South Coast is where we're looking at the 8 o'clock high tide. That's where we could get a combination of stronger winds and the storm being close to landfall plus high tide. So the South Coast, Buzzards Bay, it will be 8 o'clock tonight that we'll keep a very close watch on. As for rainfall, by the way, haven't even approached those heavier bands. That will be coming in later this afternoon as well. Bianca and Randy?
All right, thank you, JC. You were talking about the power outages, and we can get a little bit more from Richard Sullivan, who is the he's a cabinet officer in Massachusetts. He's the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Sullivan. What's the latest on power outages?
Right as we speak, there's about 8,700 customers across power in the national grid. Communities that are Randolph and Seekonk, as well as Hopedale, and in NSTAR territory, Barnstable, Wayland, Freetown. But there certainly are outages as well in Cambridge and some spotted outages in Boston. But across the Commonwealth, about 8,700. Right now, as we speak, all of those people have a restoration time of sometime later today. And the response from the utilities is quick right now, but as the storm intensifies, as you just heard, and those winds pick up, it will take longer to do restoration efforts because obviously they can't have the bucket trucks in the air during the high wind events.
Mr. Sullivan, I want to ask you, I know we're early on in this storm, a lot to get through throughout the day here, but do you have a better sense that the utilities are more prepared this time around? Well, or does it remain to be seen?
Well, it absolutely remains to be seen, and as we've been clear, and the governor's been clear, the utilities will be judged by the results on the ground in terms of the coordinated effort and the speed of the restoration. But certainly the communications early on here, both with customers, which has been a priority, that customers need to have information of when they can expect their power back on, has been better. The utilities have created the abilities for National Grid customers can text the word storm to NGrid and get real-time updates. NSTAR Northeast Utilities has an app that people can download. We would suggest that people do that now in anticipation of the height of the storm. And there has been better communication with the towns as the utilities have assigned a community liaison person to the emergency management coordinator in that community. So communications are taking place. We are double checking those in the field. But again, to rate their performance would be on the results after the storm.
We are all hoping for the best, of course, as we know you and the other state officials are. Richard Sullivan, Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs. We appreciate your time there on your cell phone, which is in and out as well, right? The service is patchy here.
And of course, as he points out, it remains to be seen how much this new protocol speeds things up, because when...
And Council Speaker Christine Quinn and our key city commissioners, and I wanted to once again thank Linda Calise for her signing. Let me begin today by updating everybody on current weather conditions and what we can expect from Hurricane Sandy over the next 2 days. We continue to remain in touch with Governor Cuomo and state officials in coordinating our response to this storm, and I'm also announcing right now that we have ordered city public schools to remain closed tomorrow. There's no chance that the mass transit will be back in time to serve people, and they're always worried about cleanup, even though the storm should abate dramatically as we get into Tuesday. The current track provided by the National Hurricane Center shows Sandy making landfall just south of Atlantic City this evening, and that keeps New York City well within the danger zone of the storm, and it's why, as of now, we are under a coastal flood warning from now through 3 p.m. on Tuesday, and a high wind warning through 6 p.m. tomorrow. This is a massive storm. Hurricane force winds extend some 175 miles in every direction of this center. The storm may strengthen as it meets the cold front approaching from the northwest, and that's when it changes from a tropical storm to a northeaster, which has very big implications for those areas to the west of us and to the north of us. As we've emphasized all along, the greatest danger posed by Sandy is the coastal storm surge it will produce. We've already had as much flooding, for example, along the FDR, which is fundamentally closed at the moment, as we did in Hurricane Irene. Now, when we close a road, we close it when the water comes up, and if the water recedes, as for example, as you go from a high tide to a low tide period, we would reopen that. But at any moment, any of these roads, if it becomes unsafe, we close it, and we have lots of people watching. The flooding that could occur later today is why we ordered our evacuation from Zone A areas. Last night, there was a high tide. Tonight, there's a much bigger one. Tomorrow, another one. Water levels along our